big time win as the Houston Rockets end their home losing streak and collect the dub against the Cleveland Cavaliers, 115-104. So many great storylines from this game to break down. Kevin Porter Jr. versus his former team. Jalen Green had a really strong game in this one. Christian Wood and Alperen Sengun sharing the floor together. The double big lineup is back. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
With the second pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Jalen Green.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep getting better every day. I'm going to keep perfecting my craft. And every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian, and also host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. And man, what a game here for the Houston Rockets against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Worth noting, Cavaliers didn't have Darius Garland out there, but so they were, not, anything far from whole, but this was such a great game and such a big time win for this Houston Rockets team. And it was the way that they won, the response that they had in that final 2.5 minutes after the Cavaliers cut this game to just a 3-point lead, to have the composure to close this thing out is exactly the type of growth that you want to see out of this young Rockets team. And man, they did such a miraculous job of closing this thing out. I want to focus on that here in just a moment, but the storylines from this game are incredible. Jalen Green had a really, really strong night. Scores for 20 plus, first time doing that since early January. Kevin Porter Jr. versus his former team, the team that cast him away, right? It's going to be great, or it was great, I should say, to see KPJ have so much success against his former team. First time playing against them, first time seeing some of these teammates in a long time. The response from him was incredible. Going to talk about that in segment 2. And then segment 3, talk a little bit about the double big lineup making another appearance. Christian Wood and Alperen Sengun sharing the floor in this game. Christian Wood and Alp, after Stephen Silas's comments recently about not feeling comfortable playing those two guys together, they were able to share the floor in this game, and things look really, really good. Alperen Sengun at points going toe-to-toe with Evan Mobley, and it looked really, really great. So we're going to talk about all that, but I want to start with just the final sequence of this game and how impressive that response was by the Houston Rockets. So Evan Mobley gets an and one bucket and cuts the game to just a one possession lead for the Houston Rockets, 105-102. And then the response by this team was nothing short of incredible and exactly what you want to see out of a young team trying to find their way and learn how to navigate in close games like this. And the best part was everybody kind of took part in this, push to seal out the game. And they didn't heavily rely on Eric Gordon for what feels like the first time in a long time, right? Usually EG is the guy that, the Rockets are going to put the ball in his hands and so, he's going to steer the offense. He's going to make, come up with the clutch bucket at the end of the game, what have you. And he's done that a lot this season for this young Rockets team. Instead, it was everybody else that made a play or made a defensive stop or got a bucket down the stretch of this one. And that was great to see, seeing everybody else step up in the right moment, the right time. So Evan Mobley cuts the lead to 3 for the Rockets, and they had a 10-0 run response to that moment where it was 105-102, and it goes like this. Christian Wood gets the ball, makes a little shot put, right? And Christian Wood maybe took it a little bit personally, the fact that, Evan Mobley got the score on him down low, maybe, wanted to get that bucket back. So Seawood comes down, gets a little shot put in the paint, comes back down on the other end, and they run they get Evan Mobley down in the post. Christian Wood is fronting him. Jae'Sean Tate rotates over, and Jae'Sean Tate rips Evan Mobley clean, steals the basketball straight out of his hands. Come back down on the other end. They run a little two-man game. Christian Wood, Eric Gordon. Christian Wood gets the ball out on the perimeter with Jarrett Allen, kind of dances a little bit, and then bam, drains the 3 right in Jarrett Allen's face. And this was great to see because we haven't exactly seen Christian Wood be super clutch, in these clutch, moments late in games. So seeing him score 5 straight points to help seal this one out was great. And then not only that, But then on the following possession, Christian Wood comes up big on the defensive end. Cavaliers have to inbound the ball. They're trying to get it down low to Evan Mobley. Again, got Jarrett Allen at the top of the key, and he's trying to get it tossed into Evan Mobley. Christian Wood sags off of it and gets the steal, just completely plucks the ball right out of the air. Rockets start walking it up at this point. They've got a slightly more comfortable lead. They're up by 8 right now, and they walk the ball up. Christian Wood passes over to KPJ. KPJ is just kind of walking in, looking like he's getting ready to set up the offense. He has a mismatch on him, and he just drills the three. Kevin Love was, sagged too far off of him, drills the three right in front of Kevin Love's face. And that three had to have felt incredible for KPJ, the dagger three to end this game. And then not only that, because that would have been a perfect cherry on top of this game, but the Rockets put an exclamation point on this game following possession. Jae'Sean Tate gets another steal on Cedi Osman, and then in transition, kicks it ahead to Jalen Green, and Jalen Green tosses the ball up and gets a beautiful lob pass to Kevin Porter Jr. for the exclamation point on this game. A 10-0 run, a beautiful run by this Houston Rockets team to pull out this game, and it was so hype. Toyota Center was rocking. The players were loving it. It was a great, great way to seal out this win. A win that had to feel incredible for Kevin Porter Jr. We're going to run some of his post-game clips back in segment 2, but I want to focus here for the rest of segment 1 on Jalen Green and just the response that he had in this game, how good he looked. And I think it comes down to a couple different things. So one, right, there's been, the concerns, the criticism on Jalen Green, all that stuff. I think for one thing, one of those intangibles, the it factor that Jalen Green had during the draft process is he does get up for big games, right? And maybe it's a thing where he's able to psych himself up a little bit more. The team as a whole gets up for these big games, but we saw it against Cade Cunningham and the Pistons. We see it in this game against Evan Mobley and the Cavaliers. And I asked Jalen Green, post game, is there something special about going up against guys like that, like other guys, other top rookies in the class? He said, absolutely, right? We're all top rookies. We're all trying to prove ourselves. And so, yeah, it's special being able to go against them, head to head. And it's exactly what happened in this game for Jalen Green. Posted 21 points on 6 of 13 shooting, 3 of 7 from behind the three-point line, 6 of 7 at the charity stripe, had 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. Just an all-around solid stat line for Jalen Green. And it really did feel like he was aggressive. He was fighting to get to the rim. There were a lot of moments in this game where he would get a kick-ahead pass from KPJ or somebody else on the team, and he'd be able to attack the Cavs defense before it was set. And I think those opportunities are huge for him to be able to utilize and leverage his speed in transition to get to the rim, to get to the free throw line, to have those easy opportunities. And then not only that, even at times in the half court, it felt like the Rockets did, maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but to have Jalen Green kind of operating in the, out of the corner with nobody else in, occupying that corner. So there's not a help defender ready to cut off a baseline drive. And there were a few plays this game where Jalen Green's able to use his speed and drive baseline and either finish at the rim or go all the way baseline, and then was able to whip the pass across to the opposite corner and get the defense rotating that way. And I like seeing those opportunities. I've harped on this a little bit before, that the Rockets don't usually operate that way when they're running a 5-out offense. Usually there's a guy in that strong side corner, and therefore that means there's a help defender there. Now, normally for an NBA defense, you don't help off of the strong side corner. That's a big NBA defense no-no. But it does kind of clog things up a little bit to where Jalen has to be more direct with his drives, where he's got to either drive, towards the middle, towards the paint, or if he's going to drive, kind of towards that baseline angle, he doesn't have as much room to work with on that left or right-hand side, depending on where that, strong side corner defender is. So just a couple observations there on Jalen Green. And lastly here, Jalen Green talks about defense a lot. And I think that that's one of the things that if you are hesitant or a little bit concerned about what he's going to look like down the line, if you're sitting here saying, oh, Jalen's a bust, right? If you're hitting the panic button, I think one of the work ethic things that should stand out and should shine for Jalen Green is that he constantly talks about wanting to be a good defender and constantly talks about using that side of the basketball to get him going. He spoke about that post game, saying that using his defense to kind of get himself going is something that he tries to do. And I think that very legitimately, Jalen Green has made strides as a defender at the NBA level. We don't see him getting absolutely murdered on screens anymore. We don't see him, there are still times where there's some miscommunications about who's switching where and, what rotations are happening. And that's to be expected. But as far as like the actual defensive effort and the consistency there were even points in this game with the Cavaliers and their jumbo, supersized, anti-small ball lineup where Jalen Green would get switched onto an opposing big, Jarrett Allen or Kevin Love or Mobley, and have to actually hold his own against a player much bigger than he is. And he did a decent job on some of those switches. Didn't give up any, crazy easy buckets right at the rim. And so that's got to be something that you've got to be really excited about moving forward, is that Jalen Green has made it a point to try and hang his hat on his defense and say, no, I want to be a good defender. He brings it up constantly, unprompted at times, wanting to be a good defender. And that's a great sign for Jalen Green and for this Rockets team moving forward. So coming up, I do want to talk about I just finished talking about Jalen Green. I want to talk about KPJ and what this game meant for him, what we saw out of him in this game, how he handled himself playing against his former teams, thoughts from Steven Silas, and more. And we're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at Bet Online, because look, Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right to the big game in just a couple of weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, appreciate you making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. The NBA trade deadline, Thursday, February 10th, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And Locked On NBA is going to be covering it live from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to the Locked On NBA YouTube channel and turn on your notifications so that you know when they go live. And hey, if the Rockets make a deadline move, I'm going to be there to break it down. So don't want to miss out on that. Be sure to check out the Deadline Show. It's always a ton of fun. I helped host it last year, not hosting it this year, but it'll be great. Those three, Kim, John, and Josh are incredible. You're going to enjoy the show. Let's talk a little KPJ, because this game, understandably so, even going into this game, Steven Silas, kind of had an expectation that this might be a bit difficult for KPJ, kind of as far as just the narrative kind of coming into this, it being his former team, what was his mentality going to be like? And honestly, KPJ carried himself so well in this game. I was so impressed with the mentality that he showed coming into this game. And honestly, so was Steven Silas.
About Kevin Porter Jr.'s composure tonight and what was understandably probably an emotionally charged game playing against his former team.
Yeah, you saw his first shot. It went. It was a three. It went in. It went off the glass, but it went in. But yeah, he showed a ton of composure, and like what we were talking about prior to the game, as far as him being too hyped up for the game, I didn't see that. I saw him play a composed game, and I saw him play a game like a solid point guard game where he was making plays for himself and getting downhill. Taking advantage of his size at times, but also making plays for his teammates. He ended up with 7 assists and 2 turnovers. So that's really good. And then as he has been doing, those dagger threes down the stretch are always good for our group as well.
The dagger threes are incredible. It's becoming the norm with KPJ that he is just rising to those big time moments, those clutch moments, being the guy for the team down the stretch when he needs to be. And so that was, incredible to see out of this Rockets team. And largely, KPJ had a, kind of a quiet start to his night, at least offensively, because he didn't attempt his second shot until like halfway through the second quarter. He wound up finishing the game with 16 points, 7 assists, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line. Just went 1 of 4 at the free throw line. You'd like to see that number be a little bit better moving forward for KPJ. He did also have a rebound and a steal, but I was curious what KPJ's mentality was kind of coming into this game. So I asked him about it post game.
Take your second shot of the game till like halfway through the second quarter. You seemed really kind of calm, cool, collected, despite what was probably, maybe an emotional night going up against your former team. Was that just a mindset you came into the game with, thinking I'm going to come out and just try and facilitate for my guys first and foremost?
Nah, my mindset before tip-off was to try to break James Harden's record and drop 60 something on him. But as the tip-off, I'm seeing all of them. Haven't seen some guys since the trade. So like, there's so many emotions going through. Like, I'm just like, man, like this is crazy. I'm playing against y'all now, and I kind of was psyching myself out, just chatting, having old conversations with him on the side, and kind of got me out of my killer mindset. But yeah, it was tougher than I thought it was going to be mentally, just staying locked in. I kind of, the first quarter, like you said, after that first three, I started chatting with DG. We're just chatting it up, talking, and I psyched myself out the game. But yeah, that sub kind of brought me back to life.
Yeah, so both Silas and KPJ talking about that first three, it was kind of funny. The backboard, you could tell that there was a little bit of, anxiety there, just a little, the I don't know, that he was just kind of amped up right for the game, and understandably so, with everything going on between his history with the Cavaliers organization, with his former teammates, all of that, and ultimately, I don't think anybody would have blamed KPJ if he had walked out and started, tried to take 10 shots in the first quarter and tried to dominate this game. And like he said, he wanted to have that mentality coming in to drop 60 and break James Harden's record, like all of that, right? Nobody would have blamed him for that, for wanting to get up big against his former team. But instead, he realized that he had kind of psyched himself out a little bit, but instead of like responding and coming back into the second quarter and trying to do too much and trying to take over the game and make it a me against you, like, 1-5 type thing, he just played his game, right? He stayed composed. He stuck to the game plan. He orchestrated the team. He ran things. He did his job as the point guard and as one of the leaders of this team, right? Everybody on this team knew how important this win was for KPJ. And despite that, and even then, again, nobody would have been upset at him for trying to take things over or trying to, get his against his former team. But no, he didn't do that. He played a solid brand of basketball. He did his job. He played good defense. He worked on getting guys in the right spots. And I think this is a big learning moment for KPJ. And this is one of those moments where we've seen a lot of these this season, right? Where we've seen the growth and the steady improvement of Kevin Porter Jr. as the point guard for the Houston Rockets this season. And this is a big one for him, right? All the narrative surrounding this game, all of that. This could have easily gone south very quickly, right? KPJ could have had a disastrous performance. We're talking, he could have gone, 2 for 15 or something, and tried to, drop in a bunch of threes or try to do too much and, rack up 5, 6, 7 turnovers. We didn't see that. We saw him respond and handle himself in an incredibly mature way throughout this game. And it even came to a point where Stephen Silas was, highlighting the fact that it's that steadiness that KPJ is starting to bring to the table that is really starting to shine in these games.
One point, I called a play and he came over. He was like, well, what if I put Garrison in that spot? And I was like, hey, yeah, do it. And he did it, and the play worked out. And I was like, that's smart. That's good basketball. So he's growing and learning, and that steadiness is and consistency is important, because it leads to steadiness and consistency in your team when your point guard is like that.
Absolutely. No argument there. Having that steadiness and consistency out of the point guard position does help the rest of the team. This team looks like a better team when KPJ is having a quality night, which as of late, there have been a lot of quality nights for KPJ, right? And seeing this team and what they're able to do when he's on the floor versus when he's off the floor, it's like a night and day difference now. This team heavily relies on KPJ's leadership, his facilitating, the ability that he has to score the basketball at times in, when needed, or in those clutch, those crunch time situations, all of that. And so I followed up with KPJ on the specific play call that Stephen Silas highlighted just there.
Highlighted earlier the fact that you came up to him at one point in the game and you said, suggested moving Garrison Matthews to a different spot, for a possession or a specific play. Is that something you're starting to get more comfortable with and kind of, working in tandem with Coach Silas, as far as play design and kind of what you're seeing, out there on the court and kind of reporting back to him on stuff like that?
Definitely, like that's part of my growth. I got to be able to you know, when the game moves fast. So like sometimes I won't be able to look at him and he give me a play to call or give him that eye contact. He say go or think like sometimes that's not available. So I gotta know who I got out there and know my guys and know their spots and try to pick apart the defense as best I can. And I know what play he's talking about. It was a 77. It was a regular 77. I put G at the first screener. And she would, after the 77, she would set him a screen to come off that flare. And then I gave it to him. I set another screen, and then he got the and 1-3. So that was a dope momentum play to have for sure.
It's those moments, those learning moments for KPJ, and hearing that he is, growing, not just on the court, but, as far as learning and figuring out the spots where he can put guys to be successful. He really is molding into a really, really good point guard for this Houston Rockets team. And I couldn't be more excited about what his future looks like for this team moving forward. The backcourt of the future for the Houston Rockets looks really, really bright right now. With that, that's going to do it talking to KPJ. I do want to talk about Christian Wood, Alperen Sengun, the double big lineup, and some final thoughts from this game. We're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at rockauto.com. Because look, with the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's basically impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend up to 30, 50, or even 100% more for the exact same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Best of all, rockauto.com is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are always reliably low for every single customer. They don't charge DIY customers more than, a chain shop or anything. It doesn't work out like that, right? The prices are always going to be reliably low. They have everything that you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even brand new carpet. So go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And this is the really important part, right? Be sure to write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. And a final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, appreciate you making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling, free and available on all platforms. Now, I will say that just to kind of put a bow on the KPJ, dynamic, I did ask Steven Silas about what KPJ, how KPJ has helped him grow as a coach specifically. And Steven Silas gave a really beautiful, insightful answer. And I shared that pregame on my Twitter feed before Rockets Cavs tipped off. So if you're interested in that answer, I thought it was a great answer from Steven Silas, and it, did a good job illuminating kind of what that dynamic is like, what their relationship is like, and how he views Kevin Porter Jr. So definitely worth checking that out. But I want to talk about, the double big lineup making another appearance and just how good it did look in stretches in this game, and how good Alperen Sengun looked in conjunction with Christian Wood in this game. Now, this was, right recently we had Steven Silas say that he didn't quite feel comfortable with, Christian Wood and Alperen Sengun sharing the floor. And I will note that this was, those comments were made right after Alp came back from injury, and he didn't look, quite 100%, or, wasn't playing some of the best basketball that we had seen out of him right after that ankle injury. So, maybe that had something to do with it. But I followed up with Steven Silas on his thoughts on the double big lineup after this game.
Recently that you didn't quite feel comfortable with Christian Wood and Alperen Sengun on the floor at the same time, but we saw that duo out there tonight, and Alp finished a team high plus 20 in the minutes that he did play. What did you see out of that pairing?
Yeah, I mean, it was helped a little bit by their size when they're playing bigger. But I'm going to just probably try it some more, and hopefully I can get both guys, especially Alpi, get Alpi more minutes, but also not have Seawood kind of tethered to Alpi. So yeah, they played well off each other. We either had one at the top of the floor, and if one was at the top of the floor, the other one was at the bottom of the floor, which gives us better spacing. And it seemed like our offense was moving pretty good, and our defense, I got to check, but you would think that our rebounding would be better when those two guys are on the floor, and I'm not sure if it was or not, but looked like it worked tonight, and hopefully I'll be able to do it some more, because like I said, I want to give both guys more opportunity.
Yeah, depending on what happens, with Christian Wood and his future, with this Rockets organization, if he's moved at the deadline or not. I mean, if he's not moved at the deadline, then hopefully this is a trend that can continue with those two guys sharing the floor, because then that means more minutes for Alperen Sengun moving forward. And offensively, I really don't think there's questions about what that fit looks like. I think they are able to play off of each other really well offensively, especially understanding, Christian Wood understands and has remarked on this before, that he understands just how good Alp's passing is, and being able to play off of him as the facilitator when he's on the floor kind of opens things up for everybody on the floor. And if Christian understands that dynamic and what that means for him, his ability to play off of Alp, then I do think that offensively that duo can shine. Biggest question mark is going to be defensively, but in this game, Alp held his own against Jarrett Allen, against Evan Mobley, against Kevin Love, a couple possessions. I mean, you look across the aisle, and yeah, Evan Mobley had a pretty big night. But Evan Mobley also did a lot of his damage, unfortunately, on Christian Wood. And Christian Wood even mentioned post-game that he wasn't happy with the post defense that he was playing in this game, and that he needs to be better and he can be better. And, that's an expectation that you have to have of him moving forward. But in possessions that, Alp was checking Evan Mobley, or Alp had to, go, create a wall against Jarrett Allen, he held his own and he looked good going toe to toe with some of those bigger guys out there on the floor. Evan Mobley finished with 29 points and 12 boards on 12 of 20 shooting. But again, a lot of that damage was done against Christian Wood specifically. So I do think that there's some hope that defensively with that double big lineup, if Alp can check some of those bigger bodied centers and Christian Wood can utilize his strengths as a switch defender and somebody that can be light on his feet out on the perimeter against some quicker, faster players, then I think you can, conceivably see how that duo can actually flourish moving forward. And Christian Wood is as hyped about, the double big lineup as the rest of us are, honestly.
Actually, Coach told me today at shoot around that if me and Alp can find a way to play together, I can play more minutes. So my motive is I have to make it work, because I definitely want to be on the floor, the whole game, and I definitely want the fans and you guys to see, how much potential Alp has, and I've been harping on it, all season about how much minutes or more minutes he should be getting, just because his talent level, and I do believe, his passing ability, we can play off of each other.
What's your assessment of how that pairing went in tonight's game?
I feel like it went great tonight. I think we were down during the game, then he subbed both of us in and we had the lead, so I think it worked out pretty well for us.
It did work out pretty well. I mean, they walked away with the dub, and again, Alp finished with a team high plus 20, his stat line for the evening. He had 9 points on just 2 of 4 shooting, but he was getting to the free throw line at a really solid rate, went there 6 times, hit 5 of them, also had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, had a block. I mean, Alp was getting it done on both ends. He did have 4 turnovers in this game, and I think that's just, it's kind of one of those things that you just sort of live with a guy that is as versatile and creative out there as Alp is, because you're going to there's going to be some moments where he's, trying to do a little bit too much. Like he, got the rebound on one possession and was trying to, run point in transition and turn the ball over there. And so there's going to be those moments where, Alp kind of bobbles it, or, going up against Kevin Love, like in the post. Kevin Love's seen all these, this bag of tricks a million times over. And so, it's kind of recognizing and learning those things and not, trying to pick his spots a little bit better. But he had some couple standout, passes in this one. He had a bounce pass in traffic to KJ Martin, like behind the back in the lane with 4 defenders around them. And, it landed there. KJ Martin didn't convert, but, it elicited a gigantic whoa from all of Toyota Center. And I mean, that's just the kind of player that he is you get at least a couple of those highlights, like almost every single game that he plays. And, I think that he's not somebody that you shoehorn into a box, right? He can do a lot of different things offensively. And I think that there was one play where somebody drove the ball in. I can't remember who, maybe it was Josh Christopher, drove the ball in, and Alp was stationed in the corner, the left corner of the 3-point line, and KJ Martin was in the right corner. And Alp flashed towards the middle as I think it was Josh Christopher driving in. It may have been Eric Gordon. I'm not 100% sure who the driver was, but somebody drove in. Alp flashed into the middle and got the dump off pass from the driver. And instead of trying to power up and go up to the rim and score himself, he, flipped the pass back out again to the perimeter. And KJ Martin got a wide open 3. And it's those types of reads and moves that Alperen Sengun has that just makes the Rockets offense flow so beautifully when he's out there on the floor. And I do think that his teammates did a slightly better job in this game than they have recently of moving well without, when he has the basketball like on the block and kind of utilizing his gravity as a playmaker and a passer to their success in this game. So really excited for the potential future feature duo of Alp and Christian Wood, at least sporadically throughout some of these games coming up so that we can see Alp get more minutes. He finished with 25 minutes in this one, which was nice to see rather than his usual 16 to 18 minutes that he's usually stuck to being tethered behind Christian Wood. Now, a couple final thoughts on this one. KJ Martin Jr. continues to prove that he is just like the perfect, super high energy role player guy off the bench. Finished with 10 points on 3 of 5 shooting. Need to see him work on that 3 ball though. Like that 3 ball is going to be what separates him from being just, okay, he's just a high energy, guy off the bench that you plug in to, inject a little bit of life in the team versus a guy who could, conceivably carve out a position as a true 3-and-D type player in this league. So need to see that 3 ball eventually come around for KJ Martin. And then Garrison Matthews. Gary Bird continues to do Gary Bird things. He had 16 points on 5 of 13 shooting, not hesitant whatsoever. Those are like starters field goal numbers, and he got them off the bench in 24 minutes. It was 3 of 10 from the 3-point line, 3 of 4 at the charity stripe. He had 5 boards, had an assist, had a couple steals, had a block. He had that one steal where he tipped the ball away and got out for the fast break slam. And I was like, fly, bird, fly. It's always great to see that happen. But Garrison Matthews he hustles. He makes things happen on both sides of the basketball. Even though he's not necessarily like a lockdown, like one-on-one defender, he just works so hard on that end that, he comes up with the hustle plays, right? The 50-50 balls, all of that stuff. And then offensively, having somebody that spaces the floor the way that he does is such a luxury for this Rockets offense because he consistently pulls from 25 feet and further, and without hesitation. So having that level of spacing and having somebody that has to be checked that far out past the 3-point line really opens things up for the rest of this Rockets team and gives him some really easy opportunities as well to score off of the bench. And that scoring punch is always really, really nice to have off of that Rockets secondary unit. So with that, kind of a quiet night for Josh Christopher though in this one. Just 12 minutes, scored his 5 points. He had a 3. He had a really impressive drive that he finished kind of hung in the air. I believe that was a cut from Alp where Alp hit him with the pass and Josh rose up and kind of hung in front of a defender and was able to finish over the top. So, quiet night for Josh Christopher, but, he remains solid. And that's exactly what you want to see out of him in that reserve role. So with that, those are final thoughts on this game. As always, appreciate you checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, brand new Odyssey app, free and available on all platforms. Also, check out the new Locked On Rockets YouTube channel. Search Locked On Rockets on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. What was your favorite part of this game? Your favorite storyline from this game? Was it Jalen Green breaking out of his slump? Was it KPJ against the Cavs? Was it the double big lineup with Christian Wood and Evan Mobley? Let me know in the comments. I'm interested to see what you guys liked out of this game. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.